Hi everyone! I may have mentioned in class that I manage beehives in my backyard, and since I have to open them up sometimes to do inspections, I thought maybe I could share some of that with you. Honeybees are really interesting to me, and there's lots to talk about that I don't cover in this video, but I thought we could look at relationships between color, form, art, and nature, all that stuff, since we researched that in class. Hi, it's Jennifer. I'm opening up the beehive. I was noticing different shades of pollen that my honeybees were bringing in, so I thought I would take some video of the beehive to show you. Honeybees collect nectar and pollen when they're out foraging. They have little hairs on their bodies, and when they fly, they build up a positive static electric charge, and that helps the pollen stick to them. And they brush it together, they mix it with a tiny bit of nectar, and they pack it in these little pollen pellets into the area of their back legs that they call the pollen baskets. And that's where they keep it until they can bring it home and store it in the hive. Bees eat both nectar and pollen. Nectar is the stuff they use to make honey and that many of us like to eat. And you can see how many different shades of it there are. The pollen comes in a lot of different colors too, and it's especially important for feeding the baby bees, or larvae. And just like nectar, the pollen's color is determined by what plant it's from. Here's a little chart. You can see how wide the range is, and maybe you could pick out some local plants from this chart. I know that they tend to store the pollen closer to the brood or the babies and the honey towards the outer edge, but I'm not sure they care about how to arrange the color of the pollen. I don't know if you know this, but I don't know if the bee groups it in a specific way, but the color could help the beekeeper, me for example, if I wanted to find out what flowers the bees have visited or how far they've gone. I do know that they can see ultraviolet light, which helps them locate the nectar in the flowers, and polarized light, which helps them see the sun even when it's cloudy, so they can see patterns of light that we can't to help them find the right flower. Okay, so if you guys can see right in there, there is some wet stuff that is nectar that they to eventually make into honey. And then if you look around that, there's some lighter yellow and different shades of stuff that isn't quite as shiny. Like, let's see here, and there, and that's pollen. And the pollen is in different colors. You see different shades of yellow and orange because they're from different flowers. Now the other things you see the bees crawling across that are more covered here are actual larvae, bee babies that are growing. Now I want you to notice there's a baby bee emerging from its cell up in the right corner there that I didn't see right away. And she chews her way out. The queen has laid all these eggs. There's some more that are covered that are going to be hatching at some point. And then over here, you could see the same kind of combination. It's hard to see because these bees are crawling all over it, as they should be. But you can see, that girl just crawled over it. Anyway, you can kind of see different shades of yellow and almost like a reddish orangey yellow in there. And over here you can see different shades of yellow and orange, and sometimes it's even like a purpley color. I don't have much of that now because it depends on what's in season. These frames that make up the beehive often look like this at first. They have a little foundation of wax or plastic to help the bees get a head start on building honeycomb. And here's a frame that at the end of the season they've used exclusively for honey, so it's really heavy. Here are a couple frames where I've left the foundation out, so the bees built up whatever shapes they wanted. I thought these two were interesting together. And you can see how even the color of the comb changes a bit depending on how it's used. So what do you think about color in your house? How do you use it? Are there certain colors you like or dislike together? Are there reasons behind it? Here's some color experiments that I've done in my studio. What if you gathered all the green things together in your house? Or what about the yellow? Would they all be the same? Can you gather a rainbow of objects together? So think about how the texture and shape affect the color. Can you find crayons, markers, or pencils in these colors? Can you try to draw them from different vantage points, from the front, from the top, and just draw the shapes and colors? Here's an artist who uses contrasting colors to help you really pay attention to the details. It's Angelo Lapiatra. And then there's this figurative sculpture by the artist and musician Curtis Tallis Santiago. The colors of the suit of armor might be different than what you're used to seeing. It's also made out of beads, which is very cool. Here's an artist who's not just inspired by colors of nature, but actually makes his art out of natural objects, like leaves and rocks. This is Andy Goldsworthy. Here's a picture from a city in Morocco that's painted mostly blue. The whole city is like this. Are these all the same shades of blue? Can you find different shades in there? You may not be able to peek inside a beehive very often, but you can teach yourself how to notice things when you're looking around the house, or if you're out for a walk, or even just looking at one color. So these are leaves I collected. They're all green, but how are they different? When I look closely, I notice there's slightly different shades of green. And what about the shape? They're all different shapes. Does it affect how I see the color? What about the surface? Is it shiny or dull? If it's shinier, it might reflect the light in a different way. And how does that make you see the color? If I didn't look very closely, I might not notice that this leaf has a red edge around it. So what other things do you notice? What do you notice when you pay close attention?